online. Welcome to Forfellingness Belysning illumination from the ancestors, guiding your path today.
Every day, someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiancé, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great-grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering a family.
All you have to do is change that perspective. So, as always, thank you so much to all of you who have liked, followed, subscribed, and you have made your notation anywhere in the secret handshakes of the internet, whether it be audio or video, and been a part of this. I thank you from the bottom of my heart to help us to push this message even further and help those who are really needing this kind of help. Well, as always, I have to reach out and say thank you so much and love and light to all my friends and family of New Reality TV. NewRealityTV.com is a streaming channel dedicated to a plethora of perspectives to help us along our spiritual journey. Wonderful interpretations of spiritual journeys that hopefully something will resonate with you and help you to discover what it is that you want to do in your life. So be sure to check them out. As always, today's show is presented by Trinity Road Websites. Every hall, every clan, every warrior tribe has always needed its longhouse, its center house, a place where voices gather and story times endure. Trinity Road Websites builds that hall here in the ether, where your message stands alone and it stands strong against the winds of time. Begin your journey today. Check out our affiliates at akumedia.akulfhednar.com. And you can check out our archives while you're there. Just put videos at the end and you'll be there. Well, God of Morgan, and happy Wotan's Day. Today we talk about the Counsel of the Raven. What is the Raven, you say? Well, the Raven is one of those centralized figures that has existed in legend and lore for a plethora of cultures. It brings together many different ideas. The first idea is obviously the idea of flight. Being high above the lower grounds, we can see at a much different perspective than we can when we're standing on the ground, right? So the raven represents that change in perspective, that alteration of the way we look at everything in our lives. In addition, the raven also is a very intelligent animal. It's very smart. And so, like you, it is an incredibly intelligent animal that can accept and decline and manipulate those thoughts that are passing through our brain. As always, the raven represents so many things to so many cultures. But in the Norse legend and lore, there were two that were probably more popular than most, and that would be Huginn and Muninn. Now, these animals were partners and associates of the god Odin. Odin, of course, being the god of the supreme god of wisdom and knowledge. One of the things that his ravens would do was to scour the earth as they flew their routes over the earth, essentially checking in on things and reporting back to Odin those experiences that they had had. Now, we've spoken about wisdom in the past, and we've spoken on how wisdom really is the collection of intellect and experiences. And when those two begin to interact and interrelate, we actually get almost a higher form of intellect, right? So we're kind of elevating this. Now, in addition to wisdom becoming this second level of intellect, it also then feeds our sensory input. So it's like a cycle. Okay. So energies from our imagination feeds into our sensory input. This is why sometimes we may hear things that have no explanation. We may see things that defy our understandings. A lot of these things are being fed to us through our imagination. Now, does it make it any less real? No. No, because it's our interpretation. Remember, when you think about having experiences in this lifetime, your experience is uniquely your own. You are adding your DNA manipulation of that imagery or that audio, whatever it is. You're adding your interpretation to that through, as we just mentioned, our imagination, and through, of course, our mood. In addition, those sensory inputs are going to pass, once they pass through the mood ring, and drop into what we refer to as the well of the self. The well of the self possesses all of our virtues, values, and belief systems, and those are formed throughout our lifetime. Many of them initiated by those with whom we've given some level of authority in our lives. Probably initially they would start out as our parents and then elders around us, uncles, aunts, anyone older than us, kind of providing that influence. Well, in some cases, they're providing some level of our virtues, values, and belief systems. Then we'll get friends as we grow. The physical form continues to grow and evolve. We'll have our friends, our peers of the time, whether those be our schoolyard friends, whether those be our high school buddies, or whether they become our college roommates and on into lifelong friendships. Whatever they may be, each one of those stages is providing for us a level of influence, some more than others, obviously, in an attempt to kind of convey this virtue, value, or obviously belief systems. These belief systems and virtues and values, these are going to alter our interpretation of the experience we have of reality, right? So all of that's going to come through, drop down, and be interpreted very uniquely to us, because the collection at the bottom of the well of the self is incredibly unique. So we've taken from many different sources what my ancestors have described as rocks at the bottom of this well. Some rocks obviously bigger than others. Some values we hold in higher esteem than others. Some belief systems are much more solid. And when we think about belief systems, we're thinking about a drop of water, if you will, just to have a visual, a drop of, or a stream of water, and how it hits one rock and then kind of reflects to another rock and then bounces off that rock and so on and so forth. And it bounces in a very specific pattern. This then describes a belief system. So your belief system is essentially a path through our virtues and values. Now, the size of the well, the depth of the well, and many other factors are essentially baked into our DNA. Our DNA is kind of what establishes so this is where this ethereal understanding meets physiology, right? So we're meeting in this physical form. Our DNA is what provides that so again, the size of the well and a multitude of other things about this well. At the bottom of the well, underneath the stack of rocks, is the conversion chamber, I'm calling it. And the conversion chamber is simply going to take electricity, bioelectricity that's now transported through the well of the self, and it's going to convert it in a very unique way to biochemistry. So we're going to release, and this again, this is where we get to the physiology in this, is we're going to release hormones into the bloodstream based on that interpretation, right? And as we release these hormones and they kind of filter through the system, again, we find these this chemistry kind of at the mercy of our chemistry, of our physiology, of our DNA, right? So what is the pH balance? What is our normal pH balance? Because everyone's not the same. We're all a little different, and that's good. That's beautiful. We all have different diets running through our system, because remember, part of what moves a nerve signal from one nerve cell to another is, the energy created by metabolism and the other natural bodily functions. So these are going to move the energy along the nerve over a synaptic clefts, of which there are many. So we're going to need that energy to move it along. So all of this is providing some level of manipulation of that signal. Ultimately, we arrive at the horn of feeling. Now, this is chemistry that we're going to now convert back into energy. Why do we do this, you ask? Well, this is the experience of our lifetime. This is the experience we're here for. We're here, much like we spoke of before with Huginn and Muninn. We're here to experience different interpretations of reality based on all this construct, this physiology that we have, right? So that physiology converts, manipulates, interprets electrical signals, then biochemistry, back into bioelectricity, allowing for this biochemistry to be our physical existence. That's why we're here. That's why we have this physical lifetime, is we have this physical lifetime to create this biochemistry that's very different than simple, if just imagine, if you will, another vision here, if you will, reading a book about emotional states, but we had never had that emotional state. We had never experienced that. So it's, for all intents and purposes, it's kind of like a picture book in a foreign language. We can kind of get the gist of it, but we really don't know what they're actually saying, right? We really don't know the context at which it is now being presented to us. So a very different understanding. Well, this is the same kind of idea that your spiritual self has before having a physical existence. Our physical existence gives us this time frame within each experience of creating biochemistry, which then alters our perspective of the experience. Okay? So we're into the horn of feeling. At the horn of feeling now, the biochemistry is reconverted back into energy. And as my ancestors were describing this to me in a vision, and they were showing me how this energy came to be, I kept having this thought of a mug of root beer. Okay, have you ever had a big frosty mug of root beer? As you pour the root beer in, you're little soda, but a lot of fizz, right? A lot of fizz. And then you have to kind of slow the pour, right? Otherwise the fizz will go all over the table and make your cup all sticky. This is essentially the same idea that my ancestors described for me and showed me in these visions, where I could see energy being created from biochemistry. So the biochemistry came into the horn of feeling, And then what happened is we saw this massive explosion, if you will, of gases. Now, in the vision, they explain that this was just a vision. This is not really how it happens, right? So you really don't have a mug of root beer in your head that is converting biochemistry back into energy. But what you do have is this place where, as the biochemistry arrives and is registered, it converts back to energy. And that energy could be very different than what we thought it was, right? So we have an experience, goes through and creates but in our creation of biochemistry, there was some virtue or value or maybe a belief system that took us off guard. And we really didn't register it until that biochemistry gets back or gets to the horn of feeling and begins to expand. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this is big, this is huge, whoa, it's going to overflow, and it does overflow the horn. All right, so we've talked about this before, and it's a critical piece. I do, however, want to make sure that we kind of recognize this idea that we always have control. Much like the mug of root beer, you simply lick your finger, stick it in the foam, notice how the foam kind of implodes around your finger, and obviously some kind of chemical reaction, but nonetheless, we're able to keep the foam down, manage it, so that it doesn't overflow the cup, right, or the mug. Well, same thing applies with our horn of feeling, is that we have this little bitty space along top, way different than anything else that's been in existence, and this is called the cognitive space. And the cognitive space is just at the top of the horn, and it allows us to think through particularly this explosion of emotional energy. So we can control it. Whoa, put the brakes on, right? So we can tamper it down just a little, okay? This allows a clean crossover between biochemistry and bioelectricity, which then will go on to ultimately our memories. If, as an example, this explosion happens very quickly, we're going to overflow our cup, and this is where you'll have physiological symptoms such as stress, anxiety attacks, panic attacks, sweaty, rapid heart rate, whatever, maybe even blackout. Because as that energy comes out of the horn, it drops into areas of the brain that don't know how to manage that energy, so they simply fire off. They simply do what they do, right? And so this is where you get physiological symptoms. Okay, now, today we are going to draw, again, from the bag of runes that I keep with me wherever I go. And again, we are going to allow the gods their time. So we'll pull, and again, I'm covering the back so I don't see it either, because the gods are still manipulating the rune. They who knows what rune I originally pulled, and now what rune we have. All right, and so we reveal. Is that Wunjo? That is Wunjo. Okay, so Wunjo. Wunjo is a great rune to have today. Wunjo is essentially the rune of success. So Wunjo says that you will be successful at some point today. So look forward to your success, but don't look for it as a glaring thing, as an obvious thing. Think of a search, right? And you're looking for your keys. You've lost your keys somewhere, right? Don't we all do that? And we lose our keys and we go on this mad search for it, because, of course, the time we realize we don't have our keys is we're trying to get out the door. And we're searching frantically for the keys, and lo and behold, they're down next to your seat cushion on your favorite chair. And you find them. That success That's the success we're talking about here. We're talking about looking for success, actively seeking a success. We'll find one. So keep your eyes out. Your success is out there somewhere. All right, my friends, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about how we can take this Counsel of Ravens as kind of our guidelines to move forward today in our modern day life and how to apply that to whatever we need to get done. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
The air.
The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
NewRealityTV.com.
And welcome back. Thank you for taking that quick break with us. Make sure you also check out, they're on our website, akumedia.akulfhednar.com. There you can also check out ways that you can support the show, whether it be through sponsorship or some type of donation. By all means, please feel free to check that out. Again, take the same website we see here at the bottom, and then you're just going to add over here where it says videos, just change that to sponsors, and you can check out all those folks who have sponsored us and the show. And by all means, check out the way that you can become a sponsor yourself or your business. Well, so, as I mentioned before, today's show is brought to you by Trinity Roads websites. I can't express appreciation enough for their contributions, because every hall, every clan, every warrior tribe, it absolutely requires a main longhouse. And that longhouse is where voices gather and stories endure. Trinity Road Websites builds that hall in the ether. Out here. Out there. Where your message can stand against the winds of time and become something much more epic. So, check them out, as well as our other sponsors at akumedia.akulfhednar.com/sponsors. And thank you to those guys. All right, today we are talking about the Counsel of Ravens, and we're talking about how to use this. One of the things that we have to remember about the ravens, and I want us to keep in mind, just really focus on, is this idea that the ravens have this ability to just manipulate, insanely manipulate their perspectives, right? So they hop around on the ground. If you've ever seen a raven, they hop around on the ground and they may be looking for seeds or wasted food, of which they're going to ingest. They may be also looking for collectible items that they're going to take back to their nest. So they're kind of hopping around on the ground and looking for these things. But then when it's time to change the perspective and look for different things, what do? They spread their wings and they fly. They lift off and actually take to flight. And this really represents our journey of changing our perspective, of altering the way we're looking at anything that happens to be a challenge or maybe doesn't seem to be serving us anymore. It's time to change our perspective. And when we do that, we can have a much better view. Now, remembering also that the raven's path, the raven's flight path, is different than any other raven. You notice that a group of ravens, referred to as a murder of ravens, kind of flies a little radically. They don't fly in an organized pattern like, say, geese or even ducks. They're very different. and yet they can still fly in groups. Unlike maybe the eagle, which although has a very unique flight path, it typically is a solo animal. All right. So ravens can still be very social animals. They also have thought process. They're incredibly intelligent. They are very smart animals. And so this really represents our journey. This is why the raven has been so critical to so many communities and so many cultures and societies, is that it is a very smart animal, yet it still possesses these magical abilities at which to be aloft, to lift itself from the ground, and to change its perspective, to look upon the earth and the lands with a much different, broader perspective. All right. So think of ourselves, if you will, think of ourselves as ravens. How are we going to change our perspective? We've hunted this area. Maybe we've looked for all of what we can get from this current situation that we find ourselves in. And now it's time to become aloft, to see it from a different perspective, to kind of get this overview now. And we can do that within our minds. So, ravens and the Counsel of Ravens is really about understanding our change in perspective, being able to alter that, to see maybe a bigger picture, to see the related items, to actually make some connectivity. We talk about wisdom, as today we celebrate Wotan's Day. Wotan, of course, being almost synonymous with the obtaining of wisdom. Wisdom being, of course, the connection between intellect and experiences. All right, so as those two things join together, they create this just this interactive pattern that we can then elevate our intellect just to that next level, thereby creating imagination. All right, so the imagination coming back into our sensory input, altering that sensory input, that is then processed through the mood ring, well of the self, horn of feelings, the me gate, and ultimately our physical memories, the physical side of our memories. So all part and parcel, all pieces wrapped together to provide for us a very different interpretation of our experiences in reality. This alteration, this uniqueness within this interpretation of reality then provides our memories, which is then connected to our spiritual self, which then shares those memories, those experiences, and that interpretation particularly of that experience with the spiritual realm for those who want to partake of that knowledge, such as the deities and other spirits of that realm. So super important that we allow ourselves to just experience this lifetime. My friends, I wish you the very best Wotan's Day. We will see you again tomorrow. But before we do that, we will see you tonight as we embrace Sporgsmal. Tonight's question, of course, just opening up the door to more intellect that we can use to now interrelate and create this level of wisdom. So I hope you will join me tonight, 6:30 p.m. Alaska time, and we'll be online for Sporgsmal. Then we'll see you again tomorrow to celebrate Thor's Day. So I hope you will join me for those. In the meantime, my friends, have a wonderful Wotan's Day, and we will see you again soon.
Ulfhednar's Belysning, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska ulfhednar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.